And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's your boy, So Welcome to the Job It's His podcast. And this is another episode of Coffee Talk with Friends. And I got a new friend here. She's beautiful. She's mega talented, amazing hair, beautiful skin. I'm talking too much right now, but I'm gonna say some more. She is one of the best hosts in the wrestling media business. Ladies and gentlemen, TK Trinidad is in the building.
¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? How are you doing?
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm just, I'm wonderful. That's my new motto. I'm wonderful.
That's your gimmick right now, Miss TK Wonderful, aka Trinidad.
Yeah. I mean, if I say anything else, I mean, the universe is not going to bless me. So I'm wonderful. Keep bringing it all.
Oh, I feel you on that one. I feel you on that one. First things first, were you at the NWA Empowerrr pay-per-view?
I was, yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? How was the experience there of being there live and seeing that amazing show?
It was so just to like go back a couple weeks, I think maybe about 4 or 5 weeks ago, we had Mickie James on the show. And Women's Wrestling Talk has kind of went through its own evolution. We went from, one host to 3 hosts to now I think we have about 12 hosts on deck. And so we had one of our hosts, Ella, she's a producer for Mickie James podcast, and they pretty much bullied me into going. I'm really glad they did. And I brought a new host with me, Stephanie Hardy.
Shout out to Stephanie Hardy. I fucking love her.
Stephanie's amazing. We need to cut that out and give that to Stephanie. She's amazing, and I brought her with me, and we went to the event. It was, so just to preface it, former athlete, used to run track, play football, all that stuff, and I never stay for anything like music events, sports shows, none of that. I love Janet Jackson, I love Drake. Didn't even stay for their whole event. Like, I just don't, crowds and me just don't really. So this was the first event that I can remember. Even SummerSlam, I left after Bianca, which is, we all know how we all felt about that one. But this was the first event that I actually stayed through the whole thing without feeling like, one, I had to stay, and 2, like, I want to go, but I'm going to stay anyway. Like, I stayed through the whole event. It was great from beginning to end. It was so great to see so many female wrestlers, especially wrestlers that I haven't interviewed yet, because the show has been around for 4 years.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. So I love seeing, like, oh dang, we haven't had her on the show, like, and just seeing so much talent. Because I think when I first started the show, a lot of people were like, well, women are just still coming up and they're amateurs and stuff like that. And it's just like, no, these women have been in the game for a minute, and even if they just started, they don't look like they started 6 months ago. Like,
not at all.
It was just on a different level. And no shade to the fellows from NWA, but like, I did majority of the editing, like all those interviews that's up for Stephanie. I did most of the editing while the NWA men's show was going on. So, I mean, I was listening, but I was working.
First of all, that's some real talented shit right there. While you there at a show and you edit and work, look at you.
Look, 24 hours, man. If you get an interview, it has to be up 24 hours. I mean, it's cute if you put it up 2 days later, but nah, I want stuff ASAP, so we get it done, period.
Tell me about that. Why do you have that 24-hour rule?
Well, I mean, I come from a news background. Mm-hmm. And I also used to work for TMZ. So it's just one of those things where if we interview somebody and it's the event, I mean, yeah, you could put it up a week later, but next week is AEW. So now you're competing against all those AEW interviews. And we have, shout out to Emily May, she's going to AEW. So we have another batch of interviews that's coming next week. So, and then on top of that, we have our show, which is on Fight TV, which I had to edit too. So already knowing that the next 2 days is going to be kind of crazy. I was like, let me just get these up. And I'm really glad that we did, because I think I ended up putting the majority of them up by 9 o'clock that night. and we've gotten a lot of views. Fightful has picked up some of the interviews, and they said some really great things. And shout out to Stephanie Hardy, because that was her first time doing that. And I mean, I've been in the game for a minute. I'm like, nah, you go and do the interviews. Like, I'll run the camera. I got you. She's like, are you sure? It's like, nah, just do the interviews. And I'm really, really proud of her. Like, she knocked it out of the park, because she was like, oh, I'm so. It's like, look, if you were terrible, I would have done the majority of the interviews. You're good. Trust me. And people are showing her so much love. So I'm really proud of her.
Yeah, Mama Dirt Sheets right there. So my brother calls her. She's absolutely amazing. Has one of the best voices in the wrestling podcast community. Like, it's so soothing. You're like, yeah, I like what she's saying right. Oh, I love this. I love this. This is good. Makes me feel like I'm at home, and it feels like it feels warm. If that makes sense, what I'm saying.
No, it does. I mean, that was the goal of the expansion. I really wanted it to be one, run by women, and two, women from all types of backgrounds. Just like how everybody's doing their thing except for some other brands. It's just one of those things where it's just like everybody's so different and so unique, and they all have different interview styles, and it's great to see that. Like, so many people were giving her hugs and stuff. Like, look, like, I'm kind of like, I'm being from Toronto, I still have kind of like that East Coast vibe. Like, I'm going to interview you, but you're not going to get that Southern charm. I'm not Southern. You know what I'm saying? So it's like she has a very great interview style, and I can't wait to see her. Like, she's going to grow from there. So she did an amazing job. And just if the roles were reversed and somebody was like teaching me and bringing me along, like, I would love the fact that, like, look, you did the interviews the interviews are up in less than 12 hours, period. So, I would appreciate that. So I treat people how I want to be treated.
Nah, you a gem to the industry. You a gem to the industry, Miss TK. Thank you. Quickly, top 5 wrestlers of all time.
Top 5 wrestlers of all time?
Yeah.
Well, I have to preface. See, it's different. I always preface it like this. Like, I have my favorites, and I have my favorites because through interviewing some people that, like, they're gonna be my favorite no matter what. So you can't. My top 5 are not based off of necessary skill, even though they have it, or mic skills, or the whole thing that people judge people off of. But like, Naomi's always gonna be, like, I have so many. I just, for me, anybody who's doing well, who is humble despite it all, to somebody who's just somebody off the street, I'm always going to show them love. And there's so many people that I've met in the industry, beyond the wrestling industry, that you can't say nothing about them to me. Like, I know how they made me feel. And I think there's a quote that Maya Angelou talked about with that as well. It's like, not what you say to somebody or whatever. When you think of somebody, you always remember how they made you feel. So they made me feel terrible. You don't even remember what the conversation's about, but I'm not really feeling that person. So so it's always gonna be Naomi. I think I'd add Mickie James to that, because she was just, I saw her in person, and she was amazing. Deanna Purrazzo too. She gave me a hug, because we're still in COVID. It was kind of weird, and she's like, "No, I remember." So it's just, I don't know. I mean, I have to shout, like, he's right above your head, Xavier. He's the one who actually got me back into wrestling.
Really?
So yeah, he's.
Talk about that a little bit.
So I was working in television in Toronto, and this was when he was at TNA.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working in Toronto, but I was also doubling in, like, the outskirts of Toronto, which is more non-melanin. And so I happened to be working there, and Xavier shows up, and we're the two melanin people there. We're both young, and, like, it's like, yo, what's up? And then we just became friends, and so we stayed in contact. And then I didn't really know, like, we would literally just say, hey, what's up? I'm good. You're good. But he never told me anything about WWE, nothing. So he was in LA, I think, a couple years ago, and he remembered me telling him that I was in LA, because I had since moved to LA. I was working at a radio station, and I was like, yeah, I'm in LA. What's good? So he was there for EC3. We had dinner. We chilled out. He's like, yeah, I'm with WWE now. I was like, oh, that's cool. He's like, I got you tickets. So he gives me tickets. And I saw wrestling for the first time live. I was like, oh, this is because I appreciate the human body and what's capable of doing. And the fact that somebody can jump off a third rope, flip, not injure themselves and not injure the person they land on is like, I don't care what anybody says, like it's not fake because people do get injured. And so I just appreciated it. I started watching it from then on just to support him. And then probably 6 months later, the opportunity at X-Pac came along, but that's because I had already been watching wrestling. If I didn't say I was watching wrestling, that would have never happened. So literally, and I watched wrestling when I was a kid and a little bit when I was in college, but I literally was watching consistently because he was on the show. And 6 months later, that opportunity at X-Pac came, and then a year later, Women's Wrestling Talk was born.
Oh man. So you gave me was that 5 or you gave me 4?
I mean, you could throw in Biggie reps my cocoa butter all the time, so I'll show throw in Biggie.
Okay.
I mean, there's so much. The Usos too were like, it's just
no. Listen. That's great. That's great.
It's very biased, and I love Bianca. I kind of sort of think that I discovered her, which I totally didn't. But I remember seeing her at CrossFit, and I was emceeing a CrossFit event, and I saw her there, and she had an outfit change for every event. I'm like, yo, this girl didn't win the regionals, but this is not the last time I'm going to see her. And I think about a year and a half later, she was signed to WWE. And it's just kind of like.
You were emceeing a CrossFit event?
I MC CrossFit events. I MC track events and CrossFit events.
Yo, how many lives do you live?
A lot. Former, I represented Canada in the beauty pageant. I've done a lot.
Jesus. Lord have mercy.
I'm busy. I'm West Indian. That's what we do. We have 10 jobs.
You know what? You're right. Because I'm Haitian, and people tell me why do I have so many jobs, but you know what? I'll shut up now.
Yeah, I don't know what it's not. I don't know what it's like not to
work,
not to work, but not to do anything. Like I don't. Even in my childhood, I never remembered like waking up on a Sunday and not having a plan, even as a child. Like I knew, all right, we do in church, or all right, my parents go to like my dad would cook breakfast, and then I have like a gap in between. They take a nap, so I can either like it's like I always had a plan, and I don't know what it's like to like wake up and what am I like? I don't. It's like nah, we cooking, or we working out, or we doing. There's always a plan. And so job wise, I mean, for my folks who live in America, you can't have one job because then you're one job away from being homeless.
No, you're right. You're right.
So yeah.
You're right. Question. How did the X-Pac thing happen? I know it's a little bit off subject, but I do want to get to know because it seemed like you had like the perfect like road, not perfect, but like everything connected together. If that makes sense what I'm saying.
No, it's as far as wrestling is concerned, it's definitely like things kind of happened. And I don't want to say I was in the right place at the right time. So what happened with X-Pac was I was working at TMZ at the time, and one of my co-workers was also working at AfterBuzz. She was working at TMZ and she was working at AfterBuzz. And I saw her post like a video, and I'm like, yo, what's this AfterBuzz thing all about? Whatever. She puts me in contact with them. They bring me on, and probably I can't remember exactly what the timeline was, but this was like coming off of like I was on Big Boy's show, and then I saw Xavier, and Xavier told Big Boy, but it was just kind of all weird. And then I think that was the end of a year. And then January I started AfterBuzz in tandem with TMZ, and they had to ask me like, what are my favorite shows? And I don't really watch for a long time, still to this day. I don't watch shows for fun. Like I watch shows for work. Mm-hmm. So if I was covering sports, I'm watching sports all the time. If I'm covering entertainment, like I'm making sure that and I make sure that I'm very versed on a lot of different things because sometimes I get those calls like, yo, can you do an entertainment segment? Yo, can you talk about wrestling? Can you talk about this? Can you talk about that? Yeah. So I watch things for work.
Okay.
So it just so happened that I was watching a lot of wrestling because Xavier was watching it or Xavier was on it. And the thing is, I'm sure you know, wrestlers don't like talking about wrestling. So I didn't really like, yo, that was a good spot. I was just more support. Like my little watch would help New Day at all. But in my mind, it's like it was just more for support. So
yeah, support. I get you.
And so afterwards, it's like, oh, what shows are you watching? I'm like, oh, I'm watching WWE, and I thought nothing of it. But you know, at the end of the day, no offense to my non-melanin people, but Black women are in particular, and they remember that. And it so happened, I think, within that 3-week period, Christy St. Cloud was started with WWE, and they needed a female co-host, and they came up to me, and trust me when I say I had to learn quick. Like, I watched all the X-Pac shows. I got the network, watched everything on the network. I would do like extensive research just to make sure, like, and I know, you know, no offense to my wrestling fans, like I know like y'all put in time, but I also want to make sure that from a journalist perspective that like I knew what I was talking about. So like I did all the work. So when we had the interviews, like I was prepared. So yeah, that's how the X-Pac thing came about. And he's interesting, but I'm very thankful for the opportunity.
How did you prepare for that? Like you said, you had to do all that intensive like repair when on the journalistic side. What did you do exactly to prepare for it? You said you were watching all the shows, all of that, but how were you watching it? That's what I'm trying to say.
The same thing on how I watch everything. I watch everything with the intent that this information is going to be used in some way, shape, or form. So for instance, like I watch, no offense to like Joe Rogan, that's 3 hours. I don't have 3 hours or 3+ hours, depending on who's on the show. I don't have 3 hours to watch Joe Rogan, but I have about 45 minutes to an hour to watch The Breakfast Club. But I watch certain interviews because I know that, like for instance, I watched Nick Cannon interview, and lo and behold, probably 2 or 3 days later, like I was talking about Nick Cannon for a show. Like I watching the intent to ingest the information, knowing that I'm going to be using it for another period of time. And it might not be, you know, now, it might be later on. So, you know, it was definitely a crash course in wrestling. And the way X-Pac picked his interviews, there was no rhyme or reason. It was because he's in the game forever. So it's like, oh, I'm going to call my friend. All right, so your friend is from this era. All right, cool. So now I have to research your friend and the era and then the people around him. And then it's just like building blocks. So then like it was just a really, if it wasn't for doing his show, then Women's Wrestling Talk would have never happened.
How did it happen, Women's Wrestling Talk? Because I think what you're doing right now is low-key groundbreaking of having this network of women of all shades, all shapes and sizes doing this. How did that come about?
What I noticed from my doing the research for X-Pac show, that when people, in particular, there were a lot of male-dominated podcasts, they would have 10, 12 male wrestlers or refs or whatever, but then it'd be like one female, like she's the attraction. And like we had X-Pac had Medusa on the show, and she had such an interesting life, and he's had other people, but at the end of the day, you can't tell me, you're always going to gravitate towards what you know. Even if you grew up, like Toronto is very diverse. That's why I really want to make Women's Wrestling Talk very diverse. But you're always going to gravitate to what you know. So for instance, like you're West Indian, I am now going to be looking out for you subconsciously every single time through social media. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just one of those things that
I get West you.
Indian, Canadian, there's like a hierarchy of things. It just,
yeah.
That's just how we all are. Like nobody can tell me any different. So I just noticed that we weren't interviewing a lot of women. And I was noticing that there were, in a lot of the podcasts, there weren't a lot of women. And then, but in my research, I'm seeing like on the indie scene, I'm seeing women wrestlers. So it was just kind of one of those things where it was just, why not concentrate on female wrestlers? Every week we bring on a female wrestler. And when we got into it, like we had people did us so many favors. Like Gail Kim, she was like the third on the show. Brandy was on the show within the first 5 episodes. Like we had people that like Tyre Valkyrie has been on the show 3 or 4 times. We had people that didn't owe us anything. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't the, you know, the person who was the ring announcer for an indie from, like I didn't, you know, start off in the traditional wrestling way where people would know you. It's just like people, I mean, it was a combination of my news background, combination of TMZ, radio, stuff like that, and just having that is going to happen, but also not taking offense. Like eventually they'll come back, and we're still, you know, we're 4 years in, and
Ooh, congratulations.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a lot, and you know, the pandemic hit. Unfortunately, AfterBuzz kind of closed its doors, and I didn't want. To me, I think it's also a West Indian thing. It's just like, just because that happened doesn't mean, like, no matter who has been on the episodes, like shout out to Evan T. Mack, he's been on, like we've had so many different hosts for different reasons and all this stuff like that. But at the end of the day, from the very first show to this last show, you're seeing my blackface. So that's not going to stop. So I was just going to continue on with it. And, you know, we brought it back. Stephanie, Sarah, myself, we started it in the middle of the pandemic, and then realizing that, you know, it's a lot of work. I mean, I'm sure, you know, cutting, editing, contacting people, scheduling stuff, being on top of stuff. That's a lot of work. And this is not my only job. Like I have a whole skincare line. I have another beard oil line. Like
I did see the skincare line. I kind of want to holler at you about some stuff. Now,
I got you. Yeah. I mean, I have a lot going on. Like I have another podcast that just, you know, possibly is going to be sold soon. So it's just kind of one of those things where,
let's go.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, like, shout out to Sarah. Sarah's really pushing it, and you know, we kind of came to a point where, I don't know, I just knew that something was going to happen, and you know, Stephanie was one of the first people who came on before the Fight TV deal came, and it was just, I wanted it to be, we're all working 3 or 4 jobs. So I wanted it to be where people have fun, and there's opportunity for everybody. And, you know, there is, as far as I know, y'all let me know, there is nothing else like us. Most podcasts have one female, and, you know, it's like surrounded by, you know, no offense to my guys, but you gravitate towards what you know.
No, so, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. The only, my co-host, I don't know if you've ever seen the podcast, Janelle, we call Janelle from the HR.
Mm-hmm.
She does a show where it's her and 3 other girls, but it's called the Big Four, but she does it for all the Big Four pay-per-views. So when she originally did it, I was like, there's nobody else doing something like besides you guys at the time. And I was like, yeah, so you're 100% right. Of an all-girl show. Matter of fact, the only one all-girl show
those wrestling girls has one too.
Those wrestling girls, and which I fucking love, their family, and Deadass Girls. They're no longer around, but their show was wrestling, and it was the wildest stuff you ever hear on the internet.
There's quite a few now. Like there's quite a few now, and honestly, I don't know if they were there when I started.
No, they weren't there when you started, because you started 4 years ago. I've started about 3.5 years ago, and the wrestling community, podcast community, has grown a lot, especially for women and people of color. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm like a solid 90%, like an 8. If I took a test, I might have gotten an 8.
I don't want to. All I know is that
you're doing big things, Ma.
So, and the thing is, we, you know, Patricia from those wrestling girls is helping us out. She's part of the crew too. So, yeah.
You got all my favorites there. You got Patricia, you got Steph Hardy.
Yeah, it's not one of, like, I don't discriminate. I want you to have your own stuff. Like, at the end of the day, we're sharing resources, and it's one of those things where the whole goal at the end of the day, like, I'm gonna put this out there. I thought about this today, so I'm gonna put it in the universe. I want to fly all these girls to WrestleMania, and we have the money to do it. Like, that's the goal.
Yo, like, hopefully I am there. and I get to meet you in person. No,
Yeah,
you know what? I will be there. I'll put that out there,
there you go.
and I'll meet you in person in there. But let's talk a little bit of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're tired of talking about yourself because I've been asking so many questions. My
There you
apologies, but
go.
you're
No,
a very
you good. You
interesting
good.
woman.
I try to
First
be.
things first, the month of August is over for the most part, and there's a lot of stuff going on in wrestling. A lot, some good, some bad, some
Mm-hmm.
great. So I want to ask your thoughts on a couple of things. First things first, what are you currently enjoying in professional wrestling right
Um, I want to say NWA, like it's the tail end of August, but I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with them. I
now?
mean,
Nice.
at the end of the day, for women's wrestling, and that's really what I gravitate towards anyway, obviously. But this summer alone has been amazing. ROH had their event, NWA had their event. Like, you know, AEW is doing amazing things. I know that's in September, but like, there's so many things happening with women's wrestling that was very exciting for the month of August. As far as promotion wise, I mean, I try not to, well, I can't be because we cover them all.
Mm-hmm.
It's not promotion, it's more like storylines. So, you know, very upset with Bianca. Well, not with Bianca, but you know, there's so many. I was talking about that today on another show where like WWE, they don't really care about our feelings, like F your feelings. I was very distraught about Bianca. I'm sure a lot of other people were. Um, you know, Sasha came back, but then she's gone. Like it's just, but what I do love about wrestling is that it evokes emotion and it also takes you away from what's currently going on. If they do it right with the storyline, whether you hate them or whether you love them, you forget about what's happening in them at the moment. Like you forget that, hey, we're still in a pandemic. Like it's like
Yeah.
all those things. So that's what I really love um, about what's happening right now because it is taking me out of the moment. There have been times where you're watching it and you're just like, dang, like what am I gonna eat today? And I got this to do and this is cute. Like, you know, but you know, now I was telling, I can't remember who I was talking. I was talking to somebody this weekend. It's like I'm like fully, sometimes I have to take breaks, but this particular moment right now, like I'm fully invested in all the promotions. All the promotions have so many good things going on. Like Kiera Hogan going over to AEW, even though that was a whole situation in itself. Like, you gonna do this girl like that? That's what we're doing right now. But
Yeah. That's a different conversation. Um,
oh man, like I mean, I hope they get it right, but we also see them get it wrong. So, but the great thing about it is there's more promotions. If one doesn't work, there's others you can go to,
mhm.
and there's others that haven't been created yet. So that's the great thing about wrestling right now. It's not just you know, WWE is not the end all be all for everything.
It is true. Okay, quick question.
Okay.
We saw some major comebacks happen this week or two. Which one you think? Who you think is gonna have the biggest splash? Becky or CM Punk?
Ooh. I think WWE is waiting to see what happens with CM Punk this weekend.
Ooh, I like how you snuck
And
around.
that will dictate what they're gonna do with Becky. Because I feel like if CM Punk didn't come back, then Bianca would still have the belt.
Mm, mm.
Because
Ah,
they've been teasing Becky for a minute, and I feel like they would have Becky would have still probably showed up for SummerSlam, but it would have been like, all right, I see you, Bianca, and they would have just did a whole storyline. But as you can tell, I'm still upset about it a week and a half later. And I'm sure a lot, and anybody that I talk to, everybody rolls their eyes like, yeah, that was some BS. Like, you know what I'm saying? So if that didn't happen and Becky just showed up, then we wouldn't be salty. And like I said, WWE likes to say F to your feelings. You know, either way, you're still giving us money to, you're still giving your money to Peacock. You're still going to watch us every week. You're still going to tweet about us. Like, you know, where Sarah the Rebel said it perfectly. We're like abused, and you know, don't want to take this the wrong way, but we're like abused. We're abused people. Like they just keep abusing us, and we just keep coming back
Oh,
as if
100%.
we can't turn off the television or anything like that. So yeah, I think they're waiting to see what happens with CM Punk, like and I mean, there only could be one real outcome. I don't see him not winning. But it just depends on, again, who else shows up at AEW. Because I think AEW is taking a page out of WWE's book, and they're going to surprise us with some stuff that we possibly didn't expect. Some other people that were formerly of WWE, and now they're just going to show up at, you know, All Out. So
I'm 100% with you on what you just said. You're right. You're right. I like your take on that one. Shout out to Benji. Thanks for the love. Next question. This may be a little hard, but hopefully you can answer it the best way possible. What are you disliking professional wrestling right now?
That is a hard question. Ooh, that's a hard question. I want to say there's one thing that I dislike, but that's on a journalist level and not on a.
You can still say that.
I don't want to say it because then, you know.
Okay.
I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it because it might ruin some things I haven't played. Well, a couple of things, and of course it's being biased. Some of the women's storylines are just like, okay, we're friends, we're no longer friends, now we're fighting. And you know, some of those guys have those storylines too, but you know, women in particular are more than, you know, we're best friends, we're no longer friends, I'm fighting because I hate you type thing. There's more to us than that. And then on top of that too, it feels like sometimes like you can have 3 or 4 male storylines going, but for some reason you can only have you only have enough space to do one female storyline. It's just kind of like, why can't you do 2 male storylines and 2 female storylines? Like, you know, there's more than enough females on rosters to actually give them a good story, one, and then also push more than one. And then also pushing more than one person of color. And, you know, it's kind of one of those things you always have to remember that, you know, we'll just talk Black people in general. We only make up 13% of America. So, you know, we can only expect so much, but it just feels like sometimes it's like, okay, well, we're pushing this one Black girl, and it's not even a color thing. It's like this person might actually have a really great storyline, so why can't we push that? So, you know, I'm really curious to see what the next kind of year holds, because I think with ROH and Empowerrr, they're 2 really great events. Hopefully, Mickie James was saying that hopefully it will be annually. I'm hoping so too. It was sold out.
Nice.
So, you know, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think there definitely needs to be more creative storylines. And, you know, if that's the case, I think WWE did hire two females. I know other promotions are hiring females as well. Like, I mean, hiring them and letting them work is 2 different things. So hopefully, you know, hopefully
it's a good point.
They can, you know, actually put their ideas to paper and let it actually happen.
Yeah, that's a great point. Last but not least, I like to get a little spicy. Okay. I know you got some political connects. So I don't want to get too spicy, but what is your hot coffee take? It could be about anything. Could be about something past, something a hill that you're willing to die on when it comes to professional wrestling that some people may not agree with.
It's not a hot coffee take. This is a take that I've been talking about for years, literally years. I mean, I wish that somebody would cut the clips out. Naomi should be part of the Samoan dynasty, period. That should have happened years ago. Like, it's not like we don't know she's married. It's not that, like, you know, is it because she's not Samoan? Like, that should have been a thing. Like, that faction should have happened years ago, and they should have wrecked shop through the locker room, period. and like give night, like it's not like, what are y'all doing? Like, but she actually has the talent, and at the end of the day, like give her something to do. Like, I don't know what WWE is doing. Like that's like, that's the gift that keeps on giving. You know, the Samoan, like everybody's part of the Samoan faction. Like, you know, there's more coming up. There's children being had. Like, this is not like the end of it. So like include her in it and like make stuff happen. Like Roman's already the head of the table, and I know he had made mention to that, but literally when I was on AfterBuzz, when I was on Raw, when I was on SmackDown, when I was on pay-per-views, all that stuff. I have a picture with Naomi at the table with the Samoans, and myself is in there too, just because. But I have a picture with that. Like, that's something that should have happened a long time ago, and I think that would have made a difference, even in the women's storyline. Like, you now are part of this faction. You're backed up by a whole Samoan family. Like, who's gonna come and test her?
Nah, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. Thank you so much, Miss TK Trinidad, for coming on an episode of Coffee Talk with Friends. Please let the people know where they can find you.
Wow, so many places. You can find me on everything at TK Trinidad. By the way, so give it about maybe 2 weeks. I am coming out with some t-shirts repping the islands. So I'm gonna have a Haitian flag, so I'll tag you on that.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll have that. I have a book coming out, so just follow TK on that. Women's Wrestling Talk, www.talkpod.com. Definitely check out our website. Anything social media, www Talk Pod. All social media platforms. All the interviews from this weekend have dropped. I'm going to be putting those up on social media soon. Our interview with Chris Statlander is dropping on Fight TV. So we're on Fight TV every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We have a news show that's going to be hopefully picked up by another network. So we have a lot of stuff going on. And man, look, you only live a certain amount of time, so trying to get it all in. And then also too, like cocoa butter, body scrubs, massage candles, you can go to centerin.co, and the massage candles are infused with cocoa butter. So you don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you have to go on the page, centerin.co or centerin.co, and all those products are there. They're all natural and vegan.
Nice. Well, once again, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this was another episode of Coffee Talk with Friends. I'll see you guys later.
Ciao.